Thank you both. These first couple are addressed to both of you. This first one is about the anxiety of influence. And it says, does the Irish writer suffer a particular anxiety of influence, given that literary lineage? John, maybe you could go first, if you'd like.
The anxiety of influence? Well, yes. I mean, it's difficult for us. We seem to have no mediocre writers. We just have giants, or we have nothing. So it's fair. And I always think of them as Easter Island statues, standing behind us, looking at us and saying, "Look at the great things we've done. What are you going to do, little man?" So yes, it is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the most important thing to say about this is that you get your voice from the voices of others, and I think we've been really lucky in many ways, and we can stand on that. But you also sort of occasionally hope that you can strike out and get new territory. But the stories have to be told, no matter what. The stories have to be told over and over and over again. And I think that's the most important thing to realize, and not to get too anxious about it, you know.
Another one for both of you. It says, you both started out on newspapers.
Same newspaper.
That's right.
Not the same time or the same?
Yeah, no.
No, not the same time.
Yeah.
It's very kind of you.
He was copy editing my stuff. He was
kind
going
of
through it. Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? Take out that bloody adverb.
I guess it's a question about whether that was a formative experience for you both, becoming novelists, working on the paper.
Well, my dad was the features editor of the Evening Press. He was also the man who started, along with David Marcus, the New Irish Writing, and actually John was published early on with the New Irish Writing, my father, Sean McCann. And I used to go to the newspapers and watch them. And the one thing my father told me at a very young age, when I was about 9 or 10, he said, he brought me into the papers, walked me around. He said, whatever you do, don't become a journalist. So I became a journalist. But I do remember the days when I was there. I was there like 16, 17, and you were there at the copy desk. People would talk about the great Mr. Banville. So.
Did they?
They did. Even down in Mulligan's.
That's very kind of you to say so, but I don't.
No, it's true. It's like
that bastard Banville. You know, he's changed my copy again. It was formative in the sense that it was a sort of raucous time. Working in newspapers, people don't realize it. It's so entertaining. I mean, I've never laughed so much as I did in those years. It was wonderful fun, and the more awful the tragedies that we had to deal with, the more we laughed. I suppose we were like doctors, you know, inoculating ourselves against the tragedies. It was good. And also, of course, to be a copy editor is a good discipline for a writer. You learn how to pare down language, to get rid of extraneous stuff. A lot of people would say, this is a pity I didn't learn a better lesson from copy editing. But it was good fun. But formative as a writer, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, for me it was, there was people like Con Houlihan who were around, and I would look at them. But, there was all sorts of, like, great Dublin humour that was going on as well. Like I'd go down and listen to the printers talking about the Rosner, which is the first drink of the day, and it's the rosin that you put on the violin bow before playing. And I remember a journalist who used to get a particular slag, and I'll tell John the name of him later on, but I can't tell you. But Con Houlihan, who was a great Irish journalist, going into Mulligan's and back at Poolbeg Street and looking down at this journalist who'd been talking for years about going off to Hollywood. And he said, and looked down the far counter, and there the man was nursing a pint of Guinness. And Con Houlihan says, there he is, Mr. X, forgotten but not gone.
Well, yes, we did. We did have lots of fun. I mean, my favourite headline that appeared in the Irish Press, which we both worked on, It was in the 70s when the government was trying to take schools away from the religious, from the priests and the nuns and so on, and make it secular. It didn't work, but they were trying to do it. And they were sending people about the country to recommend to convents and so on that they would give up the schools. And there was a marvelous headline. There was two main lines and what we call a strapline underneath. The strapline underneath said, "New convent schools policy," and the main headline said, "Nuns agree to lay principles." And I was a lowly copy editor then, and they said in those days there was a 15-minute safety gap between the front page being sent and being printed. And I was sent to get a proof of it, and I brought it back down. And there were about 6 executives sitting there, and I pointed at this thing. And they said, "What?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." And it went in the country edition. It was caught for the city edition. But isn't that a wonderful headline? The
Colum, you don't have a
days,
favorite.
the glory days. The hell with literature, right?
Dublin in the rare old times then,
Yes,
very
yes.
soon.
Colum, I was going to ask, you don't have a favorite headline you could share with us?
No, but I used to work for the Connacht Telegraph in Castlebar in County Mayo, and one of the contests that we used to have, like every Friday, we'd have a front page story, a silly story at the bottom of the broadsheet, and we'd have competitions to see how many puns that we could get into every story. That was part of the newspaper culture at the time. And see, the thing is, like, to be serious about this for a moment, it was still intimately concerned with rhythm and texture and sound and the way the word would work upon a page, which is still, I think, somewhat what distinguishes what John has even called Hiberno English, the English that we use as opposed to, or the way we look at words, or the way we treat the power of words. I think it's been an enormous thing for us.
John, do you want to say something about that Hiberno English? What do you mean?
Well,
by it?
I mean, I think Colum and I would agree that English doesn't feel to us like our first language. It's our mother tongue, and I suppose in my family, probably be my great-grandparents or even my great-great-grandparents who spoke Irish, but since then we've spoken English. But still, we're not at home in the English language, and this is very good for us. It's very fruitful for us. It makes us constantly examine every word that we use. The downside of it is that we become drunk on language, and we have to constantly pull ourselves back from being too playful and too self-indulgent in language.
Right. And see, the thing about it is that not so much in America, but certainly in England, the Irish are seen as being sort of tortuously poetic or sort of insufferably comic. It's not quite that way over here, where language seems to be more revered. If you look at, if you look at Faulkner and people like that, we'd be sort of moving in the same tradition, I believe, as a lot of American writers. So I think Irish literature would be closer to American literature than it would be to English literature.
Oh yeah, if you look at the style of Richard Ford, for instance, a writer whom I greatly admire, if you look at it closely, it's not American. It's a kind of dandified, Europeanized version of American language, and yet it sounds absolutely American. I don't quite know how he does it. So, as Colum says, we would feel more at home with the Americans and with, I suppose, the colonized, as Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie used to say that the Empire Strikes Back.
Speaking of feeling at home, Colum, this one's just for you. It says, how has writing so extensively about New York and its history and its inhabitants deepened your relationship to the city?
I don't know whether writing it writing about it has deepened it, or whether now I'm scared to write about it again for a little while, because it's almost like when I write a novel, and I think John feels the same way. I feel so exhausted that it takes me a long time to get back into the swing of things again. I know Michael Ondaatje for certain. He talks about like spending about 6-7 years on a novel, and it almost takes him 2 years to recover. Then afterwards, he has to read poetry, he has to write in other forms, and get it back. I almost feel like I'm a fraud. I can't do it anymore. I'm finished, and I have nothing left to say. And I said an awful lot of what I had to say about New York City in this particular book. And now I'm sort of trying to fall in love with it again in terms of like being able to approach it as a literary subject. But I think I'll probably go away for a while just in order to love it again.